Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us today. The show is Diaspora Dispatches. I get to bring you the latest news from across the continent. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in today. We shall start our broadcast this afternoon from Algeria, where the president of Algeria, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has pardoned more than 1,000 prisoners to coincide with the holy month of Ramadan. In a statement, his office said an additional 70 in early 2019, forcing long-time President Abdelaziz Bouteflika to step down months later. Protests continued even after Mr. Tebboune came to power. He was rejected by Iraq, who regarded him as an extension of the old political system. And then we head over to Ethiopia, where clashes between armed men and security forces have been reported in the southern Ethiopian town of Moyale, closer to the border of Kenya. A local official told the BBC that the clashes occurred between Saturday evening and Sunday morning. The official claimed the armed men were members of the rebel group Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, but did not disclose if there were any casualties. The incident is yet another indication of rising insecurity in the southern and western part of the country. A humanitarian truce agreed between the government and the Tigrayan forces has ignited hope for a resolution to the 17-month civil war in the north, but in Oromia, the country's most populous region, clashes have continued to be reported between the government forces, which include the army and regional police, and the OLA. On Saturday, a top military official, Girma Ayele, said security forces were taking decisive measures against the OLA in what he called a coordinated operation. The OLA, on their part, say they were winning battles, and there are concerns that instability in multiple places could exacerbate the humanitarian crisis across the country. A combination of drought, conflict, and disease outbreaks could result in more than 20 million Ethiopians requiring humanitarian assistance this year, and that is according to the United Nations report. And then the head of the United Nations Refugee Agency has asked Europe to be generous in welcoming to other migrants, just as it was to the Ukrainian refugees following the death of dozens of African migrants at the sea. It comes after 90 people died in international waters of the Mediterranean Sea after setting off from Libya in an overcrowded boat. The medical charity Medicine Sans Frontières say that only 4 people were rescued from the raft on Saturday. The UNHCR chief Filippo Grandi said Europe had hosted Ukrainian refugees generously and effectively and should consider the same for other refugees. Thousands of African migrants have been trying to cross the Mediterranean in recent years in search for a better life in Europe. Some manage to reach their destinations, but hundreds die each year in the perilous journey in overcrowded, often unseaworthy vessels. The European Union has faced criticism for its close cooperation with the Libyan Coast Guard to cut numbers of migrants arriving on European waters. Many migrants face further horrific abuses in Libyan detention centers on their return journey. And then we check on South Sudan, and rivals have signed an agreement on the formation of a unified armed forces command, a key pillar of a peace agreement signed in 2018. The deal was signed on Sunday in the capital, Juba, following mediation by neighboring Sudan. Tensions between President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar has recently led to clashes between their respective forces. The deal sets out terms of integrating opposition commanders into the armed forces. President Kiir's faction will have 60% representation in key positions in the army, police, and security forces. Mr. Machar's SPLM-IO and other opposition groups will occupy the remaining 40%. The opposition will submit the list of their commanders within a period of 1 week. It will be followed by the graduation of the unified forces and their deployment, which should not exceed a period of 2 months, according to the New Deal and the regional bloc. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, has hailed the deal as a major breakthrough. And then we head over to The international award that took place yesterday at the Grammys, and Beninese singer Angelique Kidjo and South Africa's DJ Black Coffee have won awards at this year's Grammy. Kidjo won the Best World Music Album of the Year for her Mother Nature album. It featured Nigerian musicians Burna Boy and Yemi Alade and Mr. Eazi. The 61-year-old singer beat Nigerians Wizkid, Femi Kuti and Ghanaian Rocky Dauni for the award. This was her 5th Grammy win. In her acceptance speech, she paid tribute to Africa's new generation of artists who she said would take the world by a storm. South Africa's Black Coffee won the Best Dance Electronic Music Album. He won the award for his Subconscious album. It was his first ever Grammy award. He accepted the award alongside his eldest son, Esona. And congratulations to those two for flying, the flag of this continent up there high. All right, and then we move on to Egypt, where the Egyptian government has waived resident permit fees accrued by South Sudanese for the years they have lived in the country. It is reported that many South Sudanese have been living in Egypt without renewing their immigration papers. According to the Egyptian consulate in Juba, this requirement will now change. Ahmed Al-Bakri revealed to iRadio in South Sudan that all South Sudanese who previously failed to renew their resident permits will not be penalized. Consular Abubakar advised South Sudanese to go to the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to renew their resident permits. And then we move over to Angola, and thousands of Angolans gathered in the capital, Luanda, on Sunday to celebrate 20 years since the end of the civil war. Many politicians, including President João Lourenço, participated in the mass. The event brought together politicians from both the government and the opposition. On April 4th, 2002, the Angolan government and the main opposition party, UNITA, put an end to 27 years of war with the signing of the peace and national reconciliation agreements. The signing of the peace agreements on April 4, 2002 was preceded by several negotiations, including the Bicise Agreement signed in Portugal on May 31st in 1999 and the Lusaka Protocol signed on November 20th in 1994. And Mali now and the army on Friday say that they had killed 203 combatants in the operation in the center of Sahel state, an apparent uptick in violence in the country war-torn country. The army said the March 23rd to 31st military operation took place in Sahel's Moura area, which it termed as a terrorism firedome. Soldiers killed 203 militants, arrested 51 people, and seized large quantities of weapons, according to the army statement. The announcement came as the numerous social media reports in Mali this week alleging that dozens of people, including civilians, had been killed in Moura. AFP was unable to verify the army's claimed death toll or the social media reports. Poor access to Mali's conflict areas and a relative lack of independent information sources mean that figures provided by either the government or armed groups are very difficult to confirm. And, of course, Mali's under-equipped army has also been accused of committing abuses during the conflict, according to a report seen by media agencies. The United Nations Security General Antonio Guterres recently warned that the UN Security Council that Mali's counterterrorism efforts had disastrous consequences for the civilian population. In a statement Friday, Mali's army said it was guided by human rights and international law, and it called for restraint against defamatory speculations. The country has seen an apparent uptick in violence in the recent weeks, and of course, earlier before that, the UN peacekeeping mission known as MINUSMA in Mali said the security had deteriorated considerably in the border area between Burkina Faso and Niger. And then we head over to Nigeria. And 146 of the 362 passengers of the ill-fated Abuja-Kaduna train are unreachable 6 days after the train was attacked by terrorists. The managing director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Mr. Fideto Kiria, made this known in a statement obtained on Monday. He, however, said the number of safe passengers had risen to 186. I don't even know what that is. Okay, so Kiria said 51 phone numbers on the manifest are either switched off or unreachable since Tuesday morning, and 35 phone numbers of the manifest are missing, but no response from the other end. Are ringing, but no response from the other end. He also noted that 64 numbers on the manifest, when called, responded non-existent. The NRC boss clarified that 22 persons are reported missing, but their relatives, and 8 persons were confirmed dead. So I think that is the latest from the news we had from across the continent. Thank you so much for watching. But also that is the latest update in regards to that unfortunate incident that happened in Nigeria a week ago, where this militants derailed, messed up with the rail, so the train got to a point where it had to stop, and so they just attacked the train and everybody that was on board, and they were able to kidnap a good amount of people. And now they're saying that a good number of them cannot, their phones are not reachable, and there's no way to trace where they are. And that is according to the manifest that has the list of passengers that boarded the train that day. It's quite unfortunate, what we keep seeing and how the insecurity in Nigeria keeps unfolding. And now I think it's reaching to levels that have never been seen anywhere in this continent in terms of how far these criminals are going, in bringing harm, in kidnapping people for ransom, in all these other activities that are tied, together, and has made the insecurity in Nigeria quite something that I think should even be I don't know if ECOWAS has even had an urgent meeting, organized an urgent meeting to discuss the situation in Nigeria, because this is no laughing matter. And the reason why these people have continued to do this is because the kind of response they get from the government is lackluster. Not much, really. Just tweets and nothing much comes in terms of the responsiveness of the government towards this insecurity. So that has made it really go as far as we've seen it now. And, for militants to think and terrorists to think that they can attack a train, that is quite unfortunate. I don't know why the train was going without army officials, not army, but security forces. A train must have some level of good security. Police or wherever. I see the trains here in Kenya. There's no way a train is leaving here, I don't know how many hours away, with a lot of people inside, and there's no security. We normally have our trains here with security personnel inside, boarded together to ensure in case of anything, people are safe. At least there could be some quick response, even as they wait for them to bring in, more, backup. Security. But it appears that was not the case there. That was not the case at all, judging from how this incident played out. So maybe this will be a good lesson to ensure that any train that leaves are now moving forward, it must have a security. There has to be some good number of security agents inside that train to ensure that the people are safe where they're going, and the ones that will be coming back. That is just a standard requirement. I see it here, so I thought that is what happens across, the world. So apparently that is not what is happening in Nigeria. I don't know if there were any security officials in that train. I'm not sure. I haven't read. But if at all they were, there could have been some level of exchange of fire or something like that. But of course, these criminals were heavily armed, and this is something that they had not anticipated. But with the kind of insecurity and the kind of activities these, militants have been carrying out, you could not possibly rule out that they couldn't, they couldn't do anything than, even attacking a train. So I think that is something that the government of Nigeria must now start being proactive. Yeah, that would make sense if at all this government even, would understand what that means in terms of we've seen things happen, that if the security agencies and the intelligence of Nigeria could have acted upon, would have been averted. But we've seen this happen time and time again, and that's what I'm saying. If at all they would understand the importance of, being proactive when it comes to intelligence and matter security. That will go a long way in saving the country a lot of these losses of lives and properties and these heartbreaks that we see that keep happening in that country. Quite unfortunate. And so now 146 of the 362 passengers of that train are unreachable. Can you imagine what these families are going through? Can you imagine the friends of these people, what they're going through, who were kidnapped, who nobody knows their whereabouts. So let's just pray that they are safe, and hopefully, I know they want ransom. And I was just reading another story today that, some of these people who have been kidnapped, their relatives have started receiving, phone calls from these kidnappers, from these criminals, demanding for some money before their people can be released. And I'm sure right now there's that clergy who usually participates in the mediation process. I'm sure if I come back here tomorrow, he would have started this mediation process. Yeah, he usually knows where these people are. He will go talk to them and say, hey, you have to, release these people. And then they'll tell him how much money they want, and he'll go and tell the families. And I don't know if he's the one who delivers, and why the security forces has never bothered to follow him and see why. But I'm sure tomorrow he would have done something by now. Okay, he's the one who's been mediating some sheikh from that part of Nigeria who is being congratulated for doing a good job in mediation process. But for me, I look at it with a side eye. How is it that he gets to know where those criminals are and the government doesn't know? And then he goes, talks to them, they release these people, and the government doesn't bother to, talk to him and try to get information about how he even knows these people and how he even has contact with these people. It's amazing, I tell you, the things that happen in Nigeria. But anyway, I will go back quick to South Sudan. Last week, we didn't have so much good news coming from South Sudan because of what was transpiring for the last maybe 3 weeks now. There had been a renewed sort of, tensions that we were seeing playing out between President Salva Kiir's side and the first Vice President Riek Machar's side. But it appears yesterday the efforts by Sudan has been the mediator when it comes to the conflict in South Sudan, and South Sudan has been the mediator when it comes to the conflict in Sudan, not the one between the military and the civilian, no, the one between the collective leadership in Sudan and other and other militant groups who are still fighting in some parts of Sudan. So both countries have been acting as mediators on behalf of the other, which has been a good thing. So Sudan seems to have brokered another truce here. Yesterday brought everybody together, and they agreed on a couple of things, and that has to do with key positions. In South Sudan, it is the positions that is always bringing problems and issues. So now 60% of that agreement, 60% of our representation in key positions in the army, police, and security forces, that will go to President Salva Kiir's side. And then Mr. Machar's SPLM-IO and other opposition groups will occupy the remaining 40%. So I guess that is fair for everybody, I suppose. Okay, but they agreed to this, and that was the deal that was signed yesterday, and so hopefully this will put the and then I think very, very crucial part of that agreement. I don't want us not to underscore that. The position will submit the list of their commanders within a period of 1 week. I think from yesterday until before the end of this week. So they should be able to do that. And then it will be followed by the graduation of the unified forces and the deployment. Let me tell you, this has been the bone of contention when it comes to some of the key articles that are contained in the revitalized peace agreement of 2018. The unified forces, remember, cantonment areas. We've talked about this. I will not get into the details of it. So these soldiers had already trained. They have been stuck in cantonment sites with in very deplorable conditions, and some officials were even leaving, going back to the villages. And so now it's about time. According to this new deal, now they will be able to graduate and be deployed, because this is what these forces, men and women in South Sudan, have been waiting for, when they will graduate and become one unified force. I think the aim was to get 83,000, men and women, army officials, to be deployed, to be unified, and to be deployed across the country. And according to this new agreement now, that should not exceed a period of 2 months. So we're in the beginning of April, and then May, June. So we will check with them early June. Hopefully by the end of May, they would have figured that out. And I hope they don't extend this now, because this has been the main source of problems. So if they can actually live up to this, all right, if they can actually do what they themselves decided, agreed upon, I think this will be a good start for them to finally, be, starting off again on the path towards getting a more stable South Sudan. And so there was a major there that was present that represented, Riek Machar's faction. His name is Major General Martin Abucha, and he said, "The people of South Sudan are yearning for peace, and peace is about security, and today we have made a milestone in that. We have agreed that we shall be moving forward." That is wonderful. And he continued to say, "I want to call on my colleagues from the other side that it is important to silence the guns so that South Sudan can prosper. Let there be no fighting, let there be no attacks." And that is very nice on paper and on just saying. Now, I'd like some action to follow that, because there have been a lot of things that have been said in South Sudan. There have been a lot of promises that have been made in South Sudan. There have been so much, even peace deals that have been signed before in South Sudan. But the implementation, the enforcement of these agreements have been the problem. Has been the problem. So now I hope that it's not just them saying, because I'm sure, there has been some international criticism, and, the U.S. has been expressing its worry. Troika has been expressing its, they're worried. So there has been some pressure. Apparently that is how the leadership of South Sudan operates. You keep just putting pressure on them, and then maybe you'll get them to do something. So there has been an intensified pressure from these stakeholders, and maybe that is what has led them to arrive to where they are. Whatever the case is, I'm just happy that they've said this, and I'm not just happy. Okay, I'm cautiously happy, because until we see this become actionable, then there's not really much to write home about. But this is a good step. I'm hoping this will simmer down the tensions that are beginning to build up, and this will, perhaps, be a new beginning. Who knows? So that's what we are hoping for. So I think that is some good progress there in South Sudan. And what else did I want us to talk about? Well, not much. So I think that is where we shall come to the end of our show this afternoon. Oh no, before I just conclude, just 2 minutes. Mali on Friday killed 203 combatants, but I saw a statement, I think earlier on, by the US, and they're saying, that needs to be investigated, because Mali apparently did not just kill the militants, but there's a possibility that in the process there were some casualties of that, and it might have the army might have killed a good number of civilians. So there has been a condemnation over the killings that happened last week. I don't know if the US and the rest of the Western countries, they're just mad because Mali, France left the country. I don't know if they expelled the ambassador of France to Mali. I think he was given 72 hours to leave. Was it in Mali? I think it was in Mali. Okay. And of course, others also left because Russian mercenaries, the Wagner group that is now doing wonderful things, atrocious things, not wonderful things, atrocious things in Ukraine, and also were involved heavily in Syria, you know, and the killings and all that. So Russia promised, you know, to help Mali fight the issue that has to do with militancy. And so that is the case. I don't know if these Western countries are just mad that it is Russia that is helping Mali, or actually some of these claims they're making, you know, can be substantiated. I'm not sure what is really going on, but they're saying there could be a good number of civilians that have been murdered during this operation that, you know, Mali has been carried out, of course, with the help of the Wagner group, that is the mercenary group from Russia. And according to a report seen by agency France Press, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres recently warned that the UN Security Council that Mali's counterterrorism efforts had disastrous consequences for the civilian population. And these are just sentiments that have started coming up just after Russia has arrived there in Mali to try to help Mali fight the insurgency. So what's really going on? I think this is a developing story, and I'll keep following it for you, and I'll bring you the latest there. Thank you so much for your time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Miriam Ogoto. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. Bye-bye for now.